Imagine someone wrongs you deeply. Like human nature and basically thousands of years of ancient law says you have a right to get even. An eye for an eye, right. But what if getting even is actually destroying your own biology? So today we are doing a deep dive into a stack of biblical, historical, and psychological research on what might be, well, Jesus's hardest teaching, unlimited
Yeah,
forgiveness.
and our mission here is to really figure out why true forgiveness isn't just some polite social nicety, because the sources show us it's actually this radical reconfiguration of the human mind and the body, too.
Right, because ancient civilization ran strictly on the lex talionis, retaliation. I mean, if ancient justice is a perfectly balanced scale, isn't Jesus' command to forgive basically taking those weights and just throwing them completely out the window?
Yeah, exactly. And the reason those scales get tossed out comes down to how the original biblical languages viewed personal injury. They didn't just see it as like a moral failing, they saw it as a literal debt.
Wait, like a literal financial debt.
Yes, exactly. The primary Greek word used in the Gospels for forgiveness is aphiemi. It literally translates to sending away or canceling a debt. It's actually the exact same word they used on the Rosetta Stone to describe the total remission of taxes.
Oh, wow. It really reframes the whole concept. So if a grievance is a financial ledger, the standard rabbinic rule back then, forgiving someone 3 times, was essentially a generous payment plan.
Right, that payment plan.
But Jesus comes along and he's demanding, what, total corporate bankruptcy?
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is he even attaches a specific multiplier to it. Like when Jesus tells his disciples to forgive 77 times, it's a very deliberate callback to Genesis.
Wait, to Genesis. How so?
Well, there's this character named Lamech who bragged about a 77-fold multiplier for violent vengeance. So Jesus takes that ancient math of maximum violence and completely flips it. He turns a multiplier of violence into a multiplier of mercy.
That is wild. He flips the math from vengeance to mercy. But what happens to us physically when we, refuse to make that flip, when we insist on holding on to that debt?
This is where the biology of bitterness comes in. Your brain actually can't tell the difference between a past emotional injury and a present physical threat.
Wait, really? It treats them exactly the same.
It really does. When you hold a grudge, your amygdala assumes you are in immediate physical danger right now. So it keeps pumping out cortisol, the stress hormone, preparing you to fight or flee.
Gosh.
And that chronic stress just wears down your immune system and significantly increases your cardiovascular risk.
So here's where it gets really interesting. Holding a grudge is essentially keeping a blaring fire alarm running in your own brain, just to spite the person who lit the match.
That is a perfect way to put it. You can literally measure the physical damage that alarm is doing. And you can measure the relief when you turn it off. Like Dr. Everett Worthington developed something called the RAACH model for forgiveness.
Okay, and what did his clinical research show?
It proves that after just 6 or 7 hours of structured forgiveness exercises, people don't just feel a little better. Their measured levels of clinical depression drop massively, and their overall sense of hope skyrockets.
I love the clinical data. I really do. But part of me struggles with how this survives outside a controlled lab environment.
Yeah, I mean, the real world is messy.
Right. The real world has horrific suffering. And unqualified forgiveness almost sounds like, an invitation to cheap grace, where people just become passive doormats for abusers.
I get that. But if we connect this to the bigger picture and look at how this plays out in extreme trauma, we see it's anything but passive. Take Corrie ten Boom, for example.
She survived a Nazi concentration camp.
Yes. And in 1947, she was speaking in Munich, and a man approached her. She instantly recognized him as one of her former SS guards, a man who had actively contributed to the horrors her sister died from, and he asked for her forgiveness.
Oh my gosh, I can't even fathom the physical reaction to that moment. Just the sheer terror of being face to face with that monster.
Right, and she wrote that her blood absolutely froze. But in that moment, she realized forgiveness isn't a warm, fuzzy emotion. It is a cold, gritty act of the will. She literally forced her hand out to shake his.
Wow. It's the same gritty resolve we saw in the Amish community after the Nickel Mines school shooting. They publicly forgave the shooter before the blood was even dry.
Exactly. It's a deliberate, disciplined language their community speaks. It is not a fleeting feeling of goodwill.
So it's an active choice.
Yes, an action that unilaterally closes the injustice gap. That agonizing distance between what happened to you and what should have happened. You close that gap yourself without waiting for the satisfaction of revenge.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? The next time you find yourself harboring a grudge, ask yourself who is actually trapped.
Right. Because the paradox of unforgiveness is that you are the one sitting in a physiological and spiritual prison. You are the prisoner you have to set free.
But the sources make one final, really crucial distinction here between internal forgiveness and external reconciliation. This is something for you to think about.
Yeah, that distinction is so important.
If forgiveness is an internal release of debt, but reconciliation requires rebuilt trust, is it possible to completely and truly forgive someone in your heart while simultaneously deciding you must never speak to them again? The weights of ancient justice might be thrown out the window, but the scale of your own peace is entirely in your hands.